to Stonbury's Downstream Dialogue. I'm Jeremy Campbell, and I am delighted to be joined today by Ben Bates. Ben is a civils contracts manager with sustainability and water expert Stonbury. We're going to be exploring nature-based solutions, in particular reedbeds. But before that, Ben, perhaps you can just give you a little introduction to our listeners out on the wires.
Indeed. So thanks for having me on. I believe this is our second episode of the dialogue.
It is indeed our second episode. Welcome.
Excellent. So my name's Ben, as Jeremy's alluded to. I've been with Stonbury now for the best part of 3 years. In that time, I've developed from project manager to senior project manager, and now contracts manager, which has been really good.
That's brilliant. Where were you before you were at Stonbury? Is this your background in terms of civil engineering, Ben?
Yes, so I've been in the industry for 26 years now.
Ben, I'm super delighted to have you on the show today. I guess for the folks outside and the folks listening in today, the first question I really would like to explore with you is going to be more around, well, what actually is a reedbed? Why is it so important to our environment? I'm intrigued myself, and I'm sure that the listeners out on the wires are the same. What is the difference between a reedbed, a lagoon, and a constructed wetland? In fact, is there a difference, and does it make any difference?
It does indeed. So a reedbed is ultimately it's man-made on the site and part of the infrastructure of a sewage works, typically tertiary treatment. Where moreover, a wetland is something that's out there in the open and to the wider environment, whereas a reedbed is enclosed to the infrastructure and the site itself.
There's primary, secondary, and tertiary treatment in wastewater.
Yeah.
Perhaps we just explain that a little bit. Then we can understand what the context of why reedbeds are becoming so important now in helping us control pollution and helping us clean water before we put it back into our rivers, into our water system.
There's been a big sort of a drive, as you may have seen in the media, regarding spills or premature spills into local watercourse. So within AMP8, there's a big drive to reduce spills to watercourse or premature spills, and the system would be so the flows come into the site through what we call a primary treatment. They come into an inlet sump.
Yes,
and then they go through secondary treatment, which is through settlement tanks, screens to reduce solids, and then they go into the tertiary. Now, on larger sites, you may get other sort of infrastructure that can be used instead of reedbeds.
Yeah,
but where there's less room, if you like, and on more remote sites, this is where the reedbeds play a critical part in the system. When the flows go into the reedbed, if they're not maintained in the way that they perhaps should, then they can block up, and that's ultimately where the key flaw is within the system. It is lack of maintenance.
So I'm right in saying that a spill would occur often during heavy periods of wet rainfall, where the system gets hydrologically overloaded.
That's it.
And therefore, raw, untreated water is going back into the system. So, what's the difference then between like mechanical traditional systems, to use your word, you said where there's confined space, versus a reedbed?
Ultimately, cost. Cost is a big driver, as it is in most things. You need a big, decent plot of land for a reedbed, whereas obviously the more remote sites might need to introduce mechanical. This is more nature. It's natural. It goes through the filtration in its own right, and instead of having generators and things like that to power it from mechanical.
So we're not using electricity. We've got a very low carbon footprint to operate this stuff.
Indeed. So that would be, there's no electricity providing. There's no blowers. So we sometimes have blowers that go into them. Blowers are ultimately aeration.
Yes.
To push aeration, it's pipe work that penetrates and is laid below the media itself, and that is powered by blowers, but it is really low wattage.
Let's turn a corner. I think we've established then the what a reedbed is. We recognise that's, as you said, it's a natural process for treating. Talk to me a little bit about how do you build one? How big are they, and how do you build one of these? How would you go and construct one?
So they can vary obviously in size, depends on the area and what flows are coming into the site. So we've done several sites. We've done smaller sites, 15 meters by 6 meters, and then we've done larger ones. They can be up to hundreds of meters long, depending on the local area. Really, it's.
Yeah, I went to one of your sites. Was it Manchester?
Manchester?
Yeah, Manchester. That was I couldn't. They were big. They were fairly sizable reedbeds too.
Yeah. So we had 4 on there, 4 in total. They were actually a refurb. So the process there was to remove the gravel, the material, take that out, move it over to a recycling facility, and we bought new in. So the footprint was already there for us on that particular site. The footprint of the associated reedbeds was there. It was our task to remove the gravel, put new in, and plant the reeds.
So Ben, perhaps just talk to us a little bit more about how do you construct a reedbed? What do you have to go through to do this?
We would look to mark out the footprint that's been given to us by the design, and then the excavation would take place to the desired depth, and then we would install what we call a liner, which we would prevent ingress into the embankments and ground, and then we then, if it was aerated, as I've previously suggested, we'd put aeration pipework spiraling across the bottom of the bed.
Yes,
and then we would fill with gravel, and then look to put in the hopper, what we call the flows where they come into the site, and then we'd plant the reeds and put the footpaths and make it all look in keeping with the site.
So can I ask you about the reeds then? Are they baby reeds? Or do they grow? Or what kind of reeds are they? Are they special reeds?
Yes, it's
3 questions in one there, sorry. Maybe 4.
No, you're fine. So it's not a seed. It's a small little plants that we've actually got a bespoke reedbed planter that we use now. You can put the plants within the tube itself, and it reduces manual handling techniques and so forth. But ultimately, it's little plants that go in and they establish themselves as nature progresses, if you like.
And I'll be right in thinking like a nursery for reedbeds.
Indeed, yeah.
Okay, these are great for removing phosphates and nitrates and harmful chemicals and out of that water system.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So talk to me a little bit about them. We've constructed them, we've built them. We recognise that we're using nature-based solutions to improve the water treatment process. What about maintaining them? Is there any special maintenance we've got to do? Any frequency? Any periodic changes we've got to do?
So the sites they're visited weekly, and they're maintained with flows. So if you've got too much flow going through the bed,
a flow being.
So it's fluid going through. So it's been through the primary and the secondary treatment. It's now entering the tertiary. So the flows that can be adjusted by weirs or whatever the case may be on that particular site, weir levels or valve arrangement. And if there's too much, it can sometimes almost be submerged. That's not quite what you want. You don't want the whole thing to be submerged as such. So it's above the gravel itself. It needs to naturally go through the gravel, and that introduces almost pushes the reeds as the flow's going through. Obviously, it'll go through the roots and it pushes them up. And we've got a few examples on our website of established reed beds that we've constructed that look really good. So it's good to see them maturing well.
And you do reedbed maintenance for Severn Trent Water yourself specifically, and Stonbury does reedbed treatment more or less for all water companies that operate a waste.
Yeah, we're nationwide. Yeah, so there's different areas of the business, different regions.
Oh well, I've got a plug then, Stonbury, haven't I? So visit www.stonbury.co.uk and go and see some of the amazing projects that Ben and his team have been involved with. Certainly for more information and more details. But Ben, tell me a little bit more about what are the benefits of using or of constructing, building, and maintaining reedbeds.
So the benefits are to prevent premature spills into watercourse. The benefit ultimately, as well, from a buildability perspective, is that it's really, dare I suggest, low risk. It's an excavation which provides its own risk, but ultimately it's an excavation. You're not introducing any particular micro elements as such. There's no electrical stuff to consider. It's almost a natural solution that the habitat as well. You know, it can attract the habitat. So we've had issues on site. We've got newts, which although it can provide its own issues for delivery, for nature, it's a good habitat for things to grow and thrive.
So from what I can gather from what you said, the low carbon, low cost as well, environmentally friendly, supporting wildlife creation and habitats, as well as being a natural solution and reducing spills.
Yes, it ticks so many boxes. They've been around for an age, and
Yeah, they're not new, are they?
No, it's not.
They're definitely not new.
No, it's they've been around for an age. Just so we're almost going back to them a little bit as an option or a use to mitigate these issues that we're having, and it's really good to get involved in. It's good stuff.
So we've got all those benefits. We've got naturalized solutions, good for the environment, more sustainable, all the things that we need to do, and of course driving those spills and the problems that are associated with spills. From your viewpoint, why have we not built more of these? I know we started off the discussion saying there are 1,500 or so right across the country. Why not use this as the standard way of tertiary treatment?
They will do their own to a certain degree.
Yeah.
But as I've suggested, larger sites would need to introduce bigger infrastructure. So it's not one cap fits all for sure.
Yeah, you did say, didn't you, that space constraints
exactly
also play a key part
yes.
in the decision to go with nature-based versus a more mechanical process.
Yeah. Typically, these reed beds are built on isolated sites.
Okay.
Where it comes from a bigger site.
Yes.
And it's almost pushed through from pipe work underground.
Okay.
And it's more remote. Whereas a big works would have the mechanical options.
And then once the water has gone through the natural filtration process, is it then released directly into a watercourse, into a river, into a stream, into a tributary? What happens after, or does it just naturally go into?
No. Well, it would naturally go in. However, there is a what we call a final effluent. So there's an isolated small chamber where we have to do samples, and we take samples to ensure that we're meeting the consent.
Yes.
If they get the right levels.
Is that you mean a test?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So they take a sample away, and they need to make sure that they're within that, certainly not above. So and then it's operated by weirs. So there's weir levels you can reduce and higher weirs to allow for different sorts of flows going out.
So it's a natural process, but it's still tested to make sure it's inside the right regulations before it goes back into the natural water cycle.
Yes, almost it plays a key cog really. Does the final effluent in terms of if it's not right, then it'll indicate and it'll ultimately tell us that something's potentially not quite right further upstream. Yeah. So we might need to introduce something a little bit different, maybe reduce the flows going in, maybe some maintenance is required on the pipe work, blockages, so on and so forth. So the maintenance, whilst they are low maintenance, they do need that certain degree of maintenance for them to operate smoothly.
Yeah. So Ben, I mean, it's been fascinating to understand more about reed beds and the natural process and the benefits that we have. A question for you, again, back into your career in the world of water. Best project you've ever worked on, and maybe why? If you've noticed, you get 2 questions for every one.
So we're currently doing a scheme at Bedworth, which is really rewarding.
Is that a storm overflow tank?
It is.
Yes, I think I've been to Bedworth. I've seen that.
Yes, we're just finishing off the civil aspect of the project, moving into the Miaika. That is again spills into watercourse. However, captured in a different way. They're lacking storage on. Ultimately, this additional storage will go a long way to mitigating future spills on that particular site. Yes. So I'd say probably Bedworth. It does look. Ironically, I've had some photographs sent to me today by my site manager. It looks really good.
Fantastic.
I'm sure we'll be showcasing that.
And that site was a good example of we can't put a reed bed in there because of the size and the location.
Not quite true. So they could have. They've got the room there.
Yes.
However, I'm aware that there's an unpack scheme.
Yes.
So further down the side, they've got the land,
Yes.
but they've got to put more infrastructure on there.
Okay. Understand.
Because of growth within the area.
Yes.
So they did have the room, but it's required for further infrastructure.
And perhaps I assume the decision to do that then is going to be that Reedbeds, as I understand them, are probably 80% cheaper in terms of capital cost, 75% better in terms of CO2 emissions. Then I understand over a 20-year life cycle that they're nearly 90% cheaper to operate than, say, a more traditional mechanical meter.
Yeah, I think you've pretty much hit the nail on the head there in terms of numbers. So they're really good. We enjoy doing them.
Yes.
Me and my wider team, we really enjoy doing them. We've got a couple in the pipeline. We've got a decent sized scheme coming up in the new year, which unfortunately we haven't been able to start as quickly as we'd like due to the newts that we've suggested. So again,
what have you got to do with those newts before you can start
do
the work?
That would start with before we start. We have to do an ecology survey. So that would basically say, well, what have we got there? Have we got any invasive species? Have we got any habitat that we categorically can't start the works? And unfortunately, on this particular scheme, we do have newts. So what we've got to do now is wait for the season. I think we can start that scheme in March.
Okay.
When the newts have gone away, shall we say? Whilst it does introduce the habitat, from a delivery perspective, it can hold things up and scuppy a little bit.
I'd appreciate that. So we also do ecological surveys. So we check and make sure that the work we're going to do is not going to have a detrimental impact to the natural habitat. So all we're doing is enhancing that habitat, enhancing that biodiversity in that region.
Yeah. So part of our CDM duties is to ensure that we're not, we ecology with the ecology that we stay within that, and we have a duty of care to work with the EA. Care of.
That's the Environment Agency.
In the Environment
Just if you're listening and don't know what the EA is, and CDM is Construction Design and Management Regulations, something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay,
that's right. So yeah, we have to certainly do that. On the Manchester, as you previously alluded to, we thought we'd found a newt.
Yes.
So we actually got sniffer dogs in there, and the dogs came in, and luckily on that site we were able to proceed because the dogs didn't find anything.
Just a final question, the final turn of our discussion. What do you think is the future of Reedbeds, certainly in England and Wales?
There certainly needs to be more of them, for sure, and that's where we come in.
Yeah.
And ultimately, they do provide a natural-based solution for ultimately our clients and the wider public.
Yeah.
It's just so I suggest easy to construct. It's a really good way to mitigate spills.
I suppose visually more appealing as well to see more greenery, more the outside natural process in that system. Ben, again, it's been fantastic the opportunity to speak to you today. I do appreciate you coming on the show. If you're listening, then please like the show. If you have not subscribed to Downstream Dialogue, then please hit the button at the bottom of your screen and check the link in our bio for some case studies. There's some amazing information to get through our bio that gives you really good insight into the world of nature-based solutions and certainly the world of Reedbeds. Thank you very much for listening. Look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.